Jason, I really appreciate getting access to some of your time for our 5 minutes with section, 5 minutes with section of our digital magazine, and I'm really looking forward today to talking to you about branding. And my first question to you is, from your professional opinion, what is the definition of a good brand?
Okay, that's a great question, Glenn. I think a lot of people mistake when they think of brand or branding, they think of like a logo or a name. And a brand name is important. The name of your company is important, but it's something that it goes beyond. It goes beyond just a name and just a logo. It's quite a lot more. I'll elaborate on that a little bit, but also there's company branding, and then there's personal branding as well. What is your brand and what personifies you? If somebody Googles you and checks you out, what do they see, and is it the message that you want them to see? And whatever your brand is, whether it's company or personal, it needs to be powerful, impactful, and memorable. People should be able to remember exactly what sums you up or what sums up your company in a nutshell. And they should be able to do it in about 15 to 30 seconds max.
Why is branding so important? And you think you've already tipped us off a little bit, but I want you just to really clarify with everybody, why is branding so important?
Another great question. Branding is the foundation on which everything else is built. So a lot of companies lack direction, and they kind of stumble, they get mired down, and they don't know which way to go or which way to grow. And that's because the branding has never really been firmly established, right? And once you build the brand and create the brand, everything else is built upon that going forward, and that's why it's so important.
What does good branding look like from your professional opinion?
Right, and this is where the rubber meets the road. Branding really takes place in two, manifests itself in two ways: verbal and visual. When people think branding, they think like website and stuff, and that's the visual. Any print material, and your business card. But the website is really kind of the home of your brand. When people land on your website, and again, logo is important, the name is important, but there's other elements to it that really come into play, and this is where most people miss out. Your USPs, your unique selling propositions or value propositions, and even before that's explained on a website, and that should only be a line, a couple lines, but is the tagline or the slogan. One line that sums up the entire company and what it is that you do. Or if we're talking about your personal or professional branding, maybe on a website, what it is that sums up you. For example, Glenn, you are the mentor to the world's highest paid coaches, consultants, experts, and that's just a powerful, powerful brand that you've created. Somebody, they can remember that because it just sums you up. A lot of people really struggle with that. Also, the verbal branding, good verbal branding, usually takes place in the form of an introduction. It's what you say when you explain to somebody what it is that you do, what your company does or you do, or a combination of both. It should be 29 seconds or less. It follows that elevator pitch process that the investors and the inventors use. It's the same thing. Just think of it as an elevator introduction. This is who I am, what role I play in the company. I'm the president, founder, CEO of such and such Capital Partners, and we specialize in, and then one line, and then maybe a couple things that make you unique, those USPs, and then you should end it with a call to action, or when it's verbal, the call to action is usually just say something that evokes curiosity and gets a response. And the response usually is you want them to ask a question and say, wow, that's impressive, tell me more. On a website, usually there's a call to action that says, take this next step, press this button, click here to learn more, call us now, sign up to get more information, and so forth. But it's what leads to that is the brand.
Jason, I've learned a lot about from you about branding, and I wanted you to touch base with us on how in your opinion can one leverage or how does one's credibility and record improve one's brand, or how can we build a brand around credibility and track record?
So that is really important to branding. I have a number of clients, for example. One is a #1 Amazon bestseller. Another one is a New York Times bestseller. And you went on their website, it wasn't even mentioned. For example, that is, you want to spotlight and you want to showcase both credibility and track record. So that comes down to accomplishments, accolades, like many special awards that you've won, or getting the #1 on New York Times bestseller, and any media appearances that you've had. Again, a number of my clients have had major media appearances. They've been on CNN, they've been on Fox News. Like if you go to my website, you see a screenshot of me on CNN. Take that screenshot, put it on there, or put the video on there, or at least screenshot of the video at minimum. Yes, the logos are important if you've been in the media as seen on, but we're seeing a lot of that now, and I recommend people write as interviewed on, because a lot of people run an ad in a local Fox affiliate and say as seen on Fox, and it's really not the same thing as having been interviewed for your because you are an authority, you're an expert. And so you've got to separate yourself from the crowd, and that's what good branding does. That's why those unique selling or value propositions are so important to your branding. You've got to infuse them into whatever verbal and visual branding that you're putting out there, so people can see that you stand out, that you're different, that you're an expert, that you're an authority or trusted advisor in your field.
I'm going to ask you, maybe it's a kind of a difficult question, but is there an objective way of increasing a company's valuation, or all of the entrepreneurs right now who are reading this magazine, how they can objectively increase the valuation of their company through branding? I'm interested in your.
There is. I mean, generally for most companies, the branding creates the value.
Right.
Because it brings in business, it helps solidify business. So it's not to be confused with marketing. Generally, a marketing funnel will incorporate elements of branding, but the overall brand, for example, generally you don't drive traffic to a website. You drive traffic for most businesses. It depends on the business, especially B2Cs and some B2Bs. You drive traffic to a lead page or something, and there might be elements of the branding in there, but with the with a website, it's all packaged in there, and you can't really put a value on that other than what it's helping your company accomplish. Usually, when people go to a website, they're skeptical. They want to Google the company or Google you and learn a little more, and then they land on the website and they read it, and then that gets them off the fence, and they take action. So how do you quantify how often that's happening? It's kind of hard to do. However, there is a time when you can really put a value on a brand, is when you're able to license the name. Donald Trump, a lot of people may know, if they know me or if they go to my website, I'm mentored by Donald Trump's first employee and executive vice president of the Trump Organization, first and his attorney and counsel, George Ross. And I asked him in our mentoring session this month about how Trump licensed his name and when he made that decision, why he did it. He's built a worldwide brand, so he's able to actually take his name and, in the case of real estate, put it on buildings and make a lot of money from that without having to put any cash into the building. He's not the developer, somebody else is. They adhere to his standards. They get the name, and for a licensing fee, he gets paid. He's licensed, ties and suits and all kinds. In fact, George told me the first thing he licensed was the suits, and that's sort of where he got the idea. Playboy's another great example. Playboy, when the internet, took off and their magazine sales went down, they almost went out of business, and they started licensing the Playboy name to products, and that saved the company. Because they had built this brand that is, worldwide recognized. The putting the Playboy name on the Palms Hotel is kind of an obvious example everybody knows, but they put their name on all kinds of products and things you can buy in a store. Now, you don't have to become a worldwide brand to be able to license your name, but you do have to become a recognized, established brand within your field, within your industry. And so good branding is going to get your brand, to that point.
Yeah, very interesting. It's a power of branding, really is power of anchoring, right? Tying something that somebody knows and trusts to other products and services, a powerful way of positioning yourself in the market. Jason, my last question for you is this. For our people that are watching our interview in our digital magazine, the readers, if you will, of our digital magazine, Lifestyle Entrepreneur Magazine, what would you recommend as one actionable step that everybody takes right now to increase their brand, maybe their company brand or their personal brand? What would be that actionable step you'd recommend?
Sure. Really, there's two things. One, you can study good branding. A lot of people, for example, that rely on a company that writes copy, maybe email copy, web copy. They either hire someone, an expert, to do it, or they learn to do it themselves. And they learn to do it themselves either by taking a course or just studying really good copy. There's a lot of copy courses out there. Honestly, I don't know of any branding courses. There's might be branding classes and things like that integral to a larger academic college education. I don't know. But out in the business world, there's just not a lot. So you have to know good branding when you see it, and then study it, and then be able to emulate it and integrate it into what you're doing. Otherwise, you need to get an expert, someone who is good at branding. I help a lot of clients do that, and you can brand anything. We're really working now on branding countries, some African countries that have a lot of growth potential, and they have a lot of elements, but it's all kind of hidden. And that it's hidden in the sense that it's a secret. Like if everybody knew, then investors would come, people would invest, the economy would grow. It's the same with businesses all the time. I can't believe how many times that I see a business that has so much to talk about and it's not incorporated into their brand. We talked about track record and credibility. I mentioned the media. That's more the accolade side of it, the credibility, but track record. I've had one client. He had done over $1 billion in deals, and he had something like 2,100 investors that he had made money for. But you wouldn't have known that by looking at his website. Aside from the fact that the website was just cluttered and little tiny text everywhere, and it just didn't work. Now he's got a nice, clean, simple website, and he's branded now as a global fund manager. So you right away okay, he does global real estate. He's a fund manager. He's sitting on cash, and everybody wants to talk to the people with cash. And then we spotlighted, showcased prominently up front that he had done this number of deals, serviced this many investors with this much capital over the last 30 years. And then people get it. They see that it's impactful, it's compelling, and it's memorable. And that's how you create a good brand.
So, Jason, thanks so much for our time together. What I've written down is an acronym here for all of you, PIM, and I think it's probably backwards here because I haven't right-sided my screen. But PIM I've got down is making sure a definition of good branding. It's powerful, it's impactful, and it's meaningful. And Jason, I've taken 2 pages of notes here while you've been talking in our short time together. I want to thank you so much for bringing the value you have and just freeing some of your time so that we could meet here in our Lifestyle Entrepreneur Magazine and everybody can benefit from you.
Absolutely, and I know if anybody, I didn't want to leave anyone hanging. Well, what's a good example of a good brand? Go to GoDaddy. They redid their whole website in that new flat responsive technology, and it's right there. Also, launchrock.co. Just the way they've laid out their website, their name, their logo, their tagline, and some of their credibility down at the bottom. Over 10 million signups. We get users. I mean, simple but powerful. Lots of other examples, but I know we got to run. Glenn, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. And again, doing business with you and just being associated with you is just just really made a difference. Again, you are the mentor to the world's highest paid coaches, consultants, and experts, and so I'm very flattered to have had this opportunity to talk to you and your followers.
Thanks, Jason.